Welcome to the Love Spark podcast. We are your hosts, Tonya
and Stevi Mavros.
If you want to hear a Midwest millennial couple talk through real practice and exploration of relationship tools and resources,
and if you appreciate a bit of authentic and vulnerable commentary along the way,
then the Love Spark podcast is for you. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you are listening, as well as give us a 5-star rating and letting us know what you learned. It really helps out the show.
Also, don't forget to visit the website, milovespark.com, to check out upcoming events, workshops, and opportunities to ask us questions.
You can also follow us at Love Spark Dates on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, let's dive into this week's chapter of The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work by Dr. John Gottman and Nan Silver.
So we're back for another episode of the podcast, working on the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by Dr. John Gottman. We are on principle number 4, chapter 7, principle 4, let your partner influence you. And as we like to do, we're going to start out with a little story time, if I may.
You may.
Okay. Jeremy was considering buying a used Honda Coupe. The car seemed like a great deal since the seller, Phil, had only bought it a month ago and was offering a large discount because he was being transferred overseas. Jeremy loved the car's handling and power, not to mention the state-of-the-art sound system. But before doing a deal, he wanted a mechanic to check out the car. "Why?" said Phil. "It's really brand new. It only has 300 miles. You get the manufacturer's warranty." "True," said Jeremy, "but I promised my wife I wouldn't buy a car without having it inspected first." Phil gave Jeremy a withering look. "You let your wife tell you what to do about cars?" he asked. "Sure," said Jeremy. "Don't you?" "Well, no, I didn't. I'm divorced," said Phil. "Well," Jeremy chuckled, "maybe that's why." Jeremy.
A little on the nose, don't you think, Jeremy?
A little bit. Call it like you see it, right?
I mean, he's probably not wrong.
Jeremy had the car checked by his mechanic, and it turned out that the suspension system needed a costly repair, so he never bought Phil's car. But more important, he never bought Phil's attitude toward women. Jeremy has made his wife a partner in his decision-making. He respects and honors his wife and her opinions and feelings. He understands that for his marriage to thrive, he has to share the driver's seat. There was a time when Phil's macho attitude wasn't necessarily a liability for a husband, but our data suggests that this is no longer the case. In our long-term study of 130 newlywed couples whom we followed for 9 years, we found that even in the first few months of marriage, men who allowed their wives to influence them had happier relationships and were less likely to eventually divorce than men who resisted their wives' influence. Statistically speaking, when a man is not willing to share power with his partner, there's an 81% chance that his marriage will self-destruct.
Couldn't imagine.
Obviously, it takes 2 to make or break a marriage, so we're not singling out men here. The point of this chapter is not to scold, bash, or insult either gender. It's certainly just as important for wives to treat their husbands with honor and respect. But my data indicate that in the vast majority of wives, even in unstable marriages, already do that.
No kidding.
That doesn't mean they don't get angry and even contemptuous of their husbands. It just means that they let their husbands influence their decision-making by taking their opinion and feelings into account. But too often, men do not return the favor.
So why did you want to share that part of the book?
Just because, to me, it circles back to
the before times
chapters ago, where we talked about the 6 signs that can show that a marriage is on the rocks, and one of those signs was the 4 horsemen. But when we particularly got to the stonewalling, which was ultimately because of the feeling flooded, which men tend to get. And so I wanted to circle back or share this because, while yes, traditionally speaking, to generalize a gender or sex is never a good thing. But it's important that people understand that this isn't coming because there's just these preconceived notions. This is legitimate data. The data
Yes.
says this. Men are the ones who traditionally do this. And as somebody who is married to a man and is now divorced from a man and has experienced all this, I would have to agree.
I mean, it would be remiss of us to not recognize that there is a trend that majority biological males trend this way, trend towards these behaviors, these reactions. Biological, females trend towards this. And, we have to recognize that that's all on a spectrum, but it would be certainly remiss of us not to acknowledge that that's certainly a very common occurrence and a
Yeah.
very common thing to keep in mind.
I mean, there, of course, are always outliers
Mm-hmm.
and people who don't fit that mold. But the reason that this material is so important is because it's data driven, right? This
Absolutely.
book
Yeah.
is written based upon data,
Yes.
legitimate things that you could see and quantify.
The
So,
majority of couples are heterosexual.
mhm.
In the majority of those heterosexual couples, men tend to be the ones who struggle a little more with this.
Yeah. And I like the fact too that in the book, like in the second section or segment of this book, he talks about how Saturday Night Live even did skits about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Political pundits were
Yeah, and
talking
this
crap
what
about
chapter is
it.
this again?
This is chapter 7, principle 4. Let them influence your
Yes.
partner.
So chapter 7 in the 7 principles for making marriage workbook. Yeah, he does say uh what is it? Rush Limbaugh and Bill Mayer
Uh,
kind of uh kind of combat what he says based on what Dr. Gottman says based on his research about sharing power with wives
yeah,
because it is a masculine trait to hoard the power
right.
in a relationship.
And he does explicitly say how they're not saying that men should give up all of their power and follow all of their lives, all of their wives' rules. It's really a mutual respect thing, and that
Yeah.
you can still have that level of mutual respect, even if you come from
Mm-hmm.
a more religious background where men are the head of the household, right? There's a lot of different ways that this can look, but it's really just about having that mutual respect for each other
Right.
and thoughts and opinions and so on.
Right. If you have any sort of heteronormative relationship, it's important to recognize that the masculine leaning partner will struggle a little bit more to give equally on a power dynamic.
Yeah. It also goes in to say that so a lot of times, husbands tend to increase the negativity around a conflict by
Mm-hmm.
what they say. And it says, but 65% of the men did not take either of these approaches. Instead, their response escalated their wives' negativity. They did this in a very specific way by trotting out one of the four horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
If the wife of one of these men said, "You're not listening to me," the husband would either ignore her, which is stonewalling,
Mm-hmm.
become defensive, "Yes, I am," or criticize, "I don't listen because you say," uh, or criticize, "I don't listen because what you say never makes any sense," or they express contempt, "Why waste my time?"
Mm-hmm.
So really, and it says that too, the wives are more likely to, um, even if frustrated, still allow their partner to influence them more so than a man, or more so than the men would with women.
Right. And I do appreciate that they kind of dive into that a little more in the chapter about how women tend to practice relationships
Hmm.
and practice relationship dynamics on a more consistent and deeper level from just even play, even as toddlers. I mean, kids kids play differently, boys and girls, in
Well,
general.
they do. I liked how he talked about too how it started as toddlers, like boys and girls will play together. But
Mm-hmm.
even during that play, you can see that girls focus more on relationship building while
Mm-hmm.
little boys focus more on like action taking, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
And
problem solving and
yeah, and then it ultimately separates as they get a little bit older because girls, I think it said like once they hit like ages 7 or so,
mm-hmm.
because boys are not into relationship building and girls are like, well, fuck this is stupid. I'm not playing with you anymore because you're dumb. And
Mm-hmm.
so they ultimately don't actually play together until they get back into like junior high or middle school.
Yeah, until they
Um,
hit puberty and
right.
start being interested in each other again.
Right. But he did express the thought that the only thing that really accounts for it, even outside of nature versus nurture, is really a biological experience,
Well,
which leads me to the fact that I had a conversation with my professor, Dr. Sella,
ooh,
who is an evolutionary psychologist who focuses
interesting.
in relationships, religiosity, and sexual experiences. And it basically kind of comes down to that is yes, we understand how these things happen,
Mm-hmm.
but why do they happen? And it kind of goes into the evolution of humans and human beings, whereas hunter gatherer caveman days, this is what
Right.
was expected versus this. And it's a whole thing, which is very fascinating to me and I greatly appreciate it.
It is very fascinating,
But
and it does show up in the data, which is why we're addressing it here. Even as a queer couple, I mean, I would say that I trend more toward the masculine, but I certainly also don't struggle to share power with you in our
yeah,
relationship.
yeah. Um he talks about signs of resistance. He talks about signs of resistance. And the reason that we're kind of diving into this right now is because the first half of the chapter really gives the detail, but then the
Mm-hmm.
last half of the chapter are the activities. And so
Right.
I feel like it's important to kind of talk about the why behind it before we do the activities.
Fair.
And so there is a passage that um, where he was basically talking about how he's met a lot of people and he's talked to a lot of people and he ends up talking to one of his colleagues and it says um after all, do you really want to make decisions that leave your wife feeling disrespected? Is that really consistent with religious beliefs? It is not. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about the biology behind why this can occur. I mean, not a lot of biology, but the difference in biology between boys and girls. One of the other arguments that people give is the religious argument
Mm,
about whatever, where where a man is the head of the household and it is his job to make the decisions and so on and so forth. He actually says some men claim that religious conviction requires them to be in control of their marriages and by extension their wives, but no religion I know of says that a man should be a bully. I'm not advocating a particular spiritual belief system about the roles of men and women. Our research our research has included couples who believe that men should be the head of the family, as well as couples who hold egalitarian viewpoints. In both kinds of marriages, emotionally intelligent husbands have figured out the one big thing: how to convey honor and respect.
indeed.
Um, and then, then he goes on to talk about uh, this was brought home to me by a colleague who follows a religious doctrine that exalts patriarchy. He believes that the husband should make all the decisions for the family, but he and his wife have an emotionally intelligent marriage. He sees no conflict between his beliefs and accepting influence from his wife. He told me, end quote, I wouldn't think about making a decision she disagreed with. That would be very disrespectful. We talk and talk about it till we both agree, and then I make the decision. This man intuitively realizes that a marriage can't work unless both partners honor and respect each other. That's true, whatever your belief system. Um,
Yeah, and you and I decided that we didn't think that means he's making the decision. I said I feel like that's him executing the decision, but that's not really here nor there. The point is
Mm-hmm.
being head of household does not mean making decisions that are disrespectful to your partner
Right.
and not including them in the decision making process. That is not what that equates to,
Right.
regardless of what religion you
Very fair.
may
Unlike our friend
ascribe to.
Chad in the book, who
Chad.
basically, so Chad and Martha. Martha's mother was
Mm-hmm.
coming to visit, and Chad was supposed to not work on Friday so they could get the house all ready. And Chad told Martha that he was going to have to work late. And Martha's like, "But you promised you were going to help clean the house." And then Chad got a little bit of an attitudey Judy and was like, "Well, I might even have to work on Saturday now." Basically,
Escalating.
escalating the conversation, and not only escalating, but trying to um not only escalating, but also now doing things to be hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
Basically saying, well, now I have to work Saturday. And the
Right.
reality is that the book goes on to say that Chad usually took the kids to their soccer practice or soccer games or whatever. And so Chad could have ultimately, instead of working late on Friday, he could have came home, helped Martha clean, and then maybe made that work up on Saturday while Martha and the mom took the kids to soccer practice. So that way it was like a win-win.
Yeah.
But because of escalation, then he gets all flooded and his attitude is all there. And so now he's not even thinking about how can we solve the problem together, but more so,
How can I get what I want because you're being mean,
yes.
or whatever the narrative is
Yeah.
for him. Yeah, and I like that. First of all, I like that the exercise to reflect on these concepts is
Mm-hmm.
called yield to win. I
Mm-hmm.
really love that because in truth, like Chad,
God,
when
Chad.
when Chad is like, "Well, I have to work because you should know I'm going to have to work extra. You know I'm really busy." Instead of, even if he goes and works late, did he win that? Like, if he quote unquote gets out of helping his wife clean and prepare for her mother's visit and instead is caught up at work and like wins the argument, is he really winning? Because now he's going to come home to a pissy wife and
God,
like,
no, he did not win. Listen,
exactly.
ladies, for my ladies out there listening, and men, you damn well know that Chad did not
No,
win.
he didn't
No,
win.
no.
Even if you think you win the argument, like failing to recognize that it's you and your partner versus the problem of how you're going to be able to utilize your time to honor both
Mhm.
the commitments of having a guest and having to work,
Mhm.
instead of making that the problem, making your spouse the problem. That's where you start to run into
I know
toxicity.
for some
Let the
people,
problem be the problem.
I know for some people, they don't appreciate Dr. Phil. Okay? I'm going to preface this
Dr. Phil.
statement, but I'm
Is
going to
he even
preface
really a
this statement
doctor?
with that. We know people don't like Dr. Phil. But what
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I do appreciate about
Me,
Dr.
I'm
Phil.
people.
What?
What?
What'd you say?
Nothing.
What did you say?
I don't like Dr. Phil.
That's fine. You don't gotta like Dr. Phil, but I don't mean the man ain't got some wisdom every once in a while. But I will say a lot of times on his show, one of the things he would say all the time was, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
uh, that's a good question.
Thank
Mm,
you. And that really is kind of, if we sum up this entire chapter, that's really the question. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? If you want to be
yeah.
right, then that means you are not going to accept your partner's influence. You're going to,
Mm-hmm.
try to take the conversation to what you want it to be. Or if you want to be happy, then you're going to listen to your partner, accept their influence, come up with a solution together and such. Even so, it's also important to know that out of newlywed couples, It says more husbands are being transformed in a way that 35% of men that have been studied are emotionally intelligent, which
Nice.
means they understand that maintaining
Yes.
a healthy relationship requires more than just the traditional role of provider, right?
Right. That there also has to be an emotionally giving component to the relationship,
Hmm.
meaning respecting and honoring your partner and their opinions and ideas,
Yeah.
not just quote unquote leading everything.
And if we're talking about learning to yield to win, one of the things he says, a significant number of core issues we see between couples today have to do with the change of gender roles. And again, it's not to say that they're bad, but often wives complain that men still aren't doing their fair share of domestic chores and childcare. This is not just an issue for young couples. We've observed this same pattern among partners in their 40s and 60s. Men who are willing to accept influence are happily married. Those who are unwilling to see their marriages become unstable. So, and it really because it comes down to that 60% of married women work outside of the home. And it is something that I hear a lot frequently. And if you actually look at the data,
Mm-hmm.
women are, they call it the second shift for
Yeah.
women, right? You
Yeah.
go and you work all day long and then you come home. And a vast majority of times women are the one who are still caring for the children, setting the doctor's appointments, cleaning the house, doing the
Yeah.
cooking and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so men who tend to be emotionally intelligent are co partners in a way that allows the marriage to be more fruitful when it comes to emotional happiness and fulfillment.
Right. Right. Mm. So we have an exercise.
We do have an exercise.
Okay. So chapter 7, principle 4, let your partner influence you from the workbook. Accepting influence is about trying to accommodate each other's wants, desires, and needs without sacrificing your own. Attitude plays a key role in accepting influence. The goal is to look for as much as you can in your partner's request that you can honor. Look for what you can do to accommodate each other's wishes instead of being annoyed by them and resistant to them. Solution: yield to win. Accepting influence involves adopting a yield to win perspective. That is, you have to give a little to get a little. Those who recognize this gain much. What you give up is more than compensated by what you receive, both in terms of finding a solution to the problem and in a richer and more rewarding relationship. Remember, men who are willing to accept influence are happily married. Those who are unwilling see their marriages become unstable. 7 Principles book, page 125. Imagine living in a relationship where each person is consistently trying to accommodate the other's needs and wants. You know what? I don't even have to imagine that because I live it every single day. It's wild.
Crazy.
So, exercise 1, they give a list of scenarios, and the instructions say to try and visualize the scenario as if you and your partner were the ones having the conflict. And the more vividly you put yourself in each situation, the more effective the exercise will be. Try to respond to the message being expressed, not to your partner's tone of voice. Assume that within the message is a reasonable request with which you could agree. Write down the reasonable part of your partner's request in a sentence. I'll be honest, that was the hardest part for me in some of these.
Mm.
Finding the reasonable part.
Hmm.
Um,
I find that very interesting that that was the hardest part for you.
uh, then note what you could say to express your cooperation.
Okay.
I think because I either found it like, yeah, duh, obviously that's a pretty freaking reasonable everything she said was reasonable. What do you mean pick out the reasonable part? Or I was like, I mean, I hear you, but
Ooh, I feel like we could totally do a real life scenario between the two of us based upon this.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that first or you want to do these
Let's do these
first?
first and we'll do that one.
Okay. So, scenario 1. You pride yourself on being an unsentimental person. Your wife, however, wants you to make a fuss over a multitude of events: her birthday, Valentine's Day, your anniversary, etc. On her birthday, she expresses hurt that you didn't plan a party and says she was quote unquote forced to make the plans herself. You say birthday celebrations are for children. She says, "Why can't you just give me what I want? Why is this such a big deal?" Reasonable part of the wife's request. What do you think is reasonable,
You
my
want me to go
love?
first? Or do you want to go first?
No, go ahead. What's your answer?
The reasonable part of the wife's request to me was to have an extra acknowledgement occasionally throughout the year.
Hmm. Okay.
And what I would have said if I had the time to think about it and then make a response to it be in the moment. I put, I can see while this is not a big deal to me, it's very important to you. I will plan the next special occasion. Can you please share something about what you would like?
Nice. Okay.
Any further thoughts than nice?
No, I just think it's interesting how different it is from mine.
Okay.
So,
But wait, can I
yeah,
just say
go ahead.
the one thing I did go, I could see some women being super pissed about it,
Hmm.
is putting at the end, can you please share something about what you would like? Because depending on the world in which you live in, EIB, DEIB, right? It could be seen as she now has to do the work for you, for you to plan something for her,
Hmm.
right? But I wrote it under the context of if this is not something that I'm good at and it's not something that I personally care about, but I still want to make you happy and I'm going to go through the effort of doing this thing, then I want you to get what you would like. But my thought is if this is something that is super important to you and I know that it's not something that I truly think is that big of a deal and it's not something I extremely care about, then
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I ask you what it is that you would like so I have an idea of where to go to make it something that's you would be happy with.
Mm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I hear you.
You
I hear
know?
you. At least in that conversation to clarify instead of having to ask every time. I think that's important too. Like, you don't want it to be this consistent, well, what do you want? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Because that does cross that line a little bit.
Mhm.
But just saying, give me an idea of what you would like me to do for these things in the future so that I can, so that I have some ideas of what it is that would make you happy.
Right. If you're going to ask that question, you better be taking some notes.
Fair,
Okay, what
fair.
was yours?
I said that the reasonable part of the wife's request was that she wants to celebrate a special occasion. From the scenario, I got that she wants to celebrate everything as a special occasion. So, what I said to that was, do you think we could pick one thing quarterly that we make an extra big deal of,
Mm,
um, so that I don't feel stretched quite so thin? Or
mm,
if it's even just a matter of, you don't want to be the one to plan everything all the time, is it acceptable if I just plan one thing quarterly?
mm.
But that means if your birthday your birthday and our anniversary are in the same quarter, then pick one that I plan by myself and we can plan the other one together.
Mm, mhm.
But, I feel stretched too thin by this many occasions.
Yeah. I could see that. I guess when reading the events that were listed, to me those seem to be mostly quarterly anyway. Like Valentine's to birthday to anniversary. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are. That's just kind of like how I envisioned.
But, like,
But I hear what
if
you're
you're
saying about doing
celebrating every
the
single minor holiday and you have, say you have 3 kids plus the parents and everyone's birthdays are spread around, like, that could be you could have 1 or 2 things going on every single month.
right. But the other thing that I think is really fascinating about this is that her birthday, Valentine's Day, and your anniversary. Now, if we circle back to what we just talked about in the book,
Mhm.
she's probably doing all the other lifting for everything else.
Yeah.
Christmas, Thanksgiving, the kids' birthdays, the parents' birthdays. Like,
Sure.
I'm guessing if this person, oh, that's the other thing too. It did say that these were really scenarios. Research has shown that women bring up the complaint 80% of the time. Thus, the scenarios below focus on the wife's perspective. It
Yeah.
does focus on the women's perspective. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, because I think there are people who do want to celebrate every little occasion and every little holiday, and I think that that's fair. But I also think that you have to be understanding of other people not having the capacity to do so.
Ooh, this is why when I started Love Spark, I started with date planning for
Yes.
birthdays, anniversaries, and Valentine's Day and stuff because
Mm-hmm.
there are people who would like to do those things. They're just horrible at it.
Yeah.
And so it was a way for them to be able to still put in the thought and effort, but have somebody who's good at the planning,
Right.
be able to execute for them, which it is something that I still do, but it's off menu. So you just got to know to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Scenario two.
So, scenario 2. Your wife is upset that you didn't check with her before accepting a dinner invitation from your friends Matt and Sally. She can't stand eating at their place because she thinks Sally is overly focused on health foods and dietary supplements. Tell them we can't come, your wife insists.
So the reasonable part of the wife's request to me was to confirm before making plans to eat with them outside. And then also, sorry, let me rephrase this. The reasonable request was to confirm before making plans, but also the other part of the reasonable request in there, I would say, was to eat with them outside of their home.
Hmm.
And so, because I kind of looked at it like, well, she's not saying she doesn't want to get together with them. She's saying she doesn't want to eat there because of the way that his wife cooks things. Right. And then also, you didn't actually ask if she was like up for that because she would have said no because of the way the wife cooks things. So I'm like, okay. So I feel like there's like a two-part
Okay.
reasonableness there.
Okay.
And then I would have said, you're right. Sorry I didn't talk with you before confirming. Let's suggest tidying out for a new experience this time.
Hmm. Yeah. Nice. Solid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I picked up something different.
Oh, do tell.
I thought the reasonable part of the wife's request is that she doesn't want to hang out with Sally. Was kind of what I was getting like, ugh, I want to hang out with her. All she ever talks about is food and diet supplements, and like that's
Mm.
all she cares about. So I got the sense that like there wasn't really a better option other than eating at their house because Sally's so concerned about it, but also
Mm.
that, you know, the wife is upset because she doesn't has no interest in spending time with Sally. So that's
Mm.
kind of what I got out of it.
How fascinating. How differently we viewed those things.
To be fair though, I also kind of read some stuff in the book before doing the workbook portion.
Which was what?
In the book, that's basically what it well the solution in the book. Anyway, okay, what I would say, thinking that the wife doesn't want to hang out with Sally, is I won't leave you alone uh with Sally, and in the future I'll always check with you before accepting an invite, which I think you should do anyway, obviously.
Obviously.
Um but yeah, that was the solution in the book, was like, "Oh, I won't leave you to just have to talk to Sally. I'll stay."
I see what you're saying of when it comes to the sample answers about Sally's sermons about food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, see? That
that's what. Okay, so I
yeah.
didn't even look at any of these. I just kind of
That was in the book. And I read
and
through.
see. I didn't read through the exercises in the book because I knew
That
that.
was when I asked you, because I
Oh,
was reading through those and I stopped there. So I only read the second one. I didn't read further.
oh,
But
yeah.
that's
That's
why, because
that's because I knew that
honestly,
we were going to do them anyway, so I just didn't even bother. But
yeah.
yeah, but see, but I still find it really fascinating that that was the route in which the Gottmans were going, and I can
Mhm.
see how somebody would think that. But at the same time, I could also see that would be like me being like, yeah, I wish you would have asked me, but like Jake always puts spicy stuff in his food. Right? I love Jake. He's a fabulous cook, Jake. We love you. But and I don't
That
mind.
lasagna was not that
Oh my
spicy.
fucking god, it was spicy, and I found a jalapeno in it. So
There
I don't
was
want to hear about
not
it.
a jalapeno
I'm
in it.
telling you it was. I'm telling you what was. Do I lie?
I didn't say
Am I
that.
a
I'm just
liar?
saying that you misinterpreted
Oh no 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 no
what that
no.
was.
It was not.
I
No.
I don't think that's what that was.
But my point is the way is like the way that I read it is I read it like they still like the friends and they still like the group, but they just don't really care for the way that Sally goes
You
about
thought it was
cooking
about the
things.
food.
Yeah.
And I was reading this and I was like, this is dumb. Obviously, you should have checked with your wife before just agreeing to plans. It's rude not
I
to.
mean that first,
But I was
yes.
like, other than that, what's reasonable about the wife's request? Well, it sounds to me like she don't want to fucking hang out over there.
Well, after you already read the scenario, but yes, I hear you. So,
Yes.
anyways,
Yeah,
but I
that.
do love Jake. I love his cooking, and I actually don't mind the spice that he puts into things. I was not expecting a spicy
It's
lasagna.
not that spicy. It was just a well spiced lasagna.
Teach their own. It is a very subjective thing. Spice. Scenario 3.
That's fair, I guess. Scenario 3. Sometimes you make a bit of mess in the living room when you get home from work, but you usually clean it up after dinner when you have a little more energy. One night when you haven't cleaned up, your partner says, "It really makes me mad the way you leave your stuff around. I'm tired too, and I wish I didn't have to pick up after you. Why can't you clean up before dinner?"
Okay, the reasonable request. Clean the hell up before dinner.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
hell
what
was
I
not
put.
actually what I wrote, but like clean up before dinner. I feel like that was pretty obvious.
Yeah, I put that too.
So, what I would say was, I usually clean up after dinner and didn't realize it would be better for you if I did it beforehand. I can make sure to clean before dinner moving forward.
I just said, "You're right." But yeah, that.
You're right.
that's, that's,
That's
what else
that's
do you need to
fair.
say? You're right. I should pick up before dinner now that I know that that bothers you.
I mean, I
The
feel
way that it
like
was put, it was like it should have been known that the wife doesn't want things laying around during dinner, but also like why
I
wouldn't
mean,
you
I kind of
know?
looked at it like I can't tell you that you're right if you've never told me that this is an issue and now all of a sudden you're flying off the handle about something you've never said. So, I hear you. I can understand how that would be important and I will do that moving forward. But
Mm.
like open your mouth, Gina. Speak some words. Uh, okay. Oh, I'm so excited about
Oh
this.
yeah.
I am so excited for this one.
Yes.
Can I read it? Can I read it? I'm going to read
Yes.
it.
You
Okay.
should.
The Gottman Island Survival Game.
Okay.
Uh, in the book, pages 133 through 136. Imagine that your cruise ship just sank in the Caribbean and you awaken to find yourselves on a deserted island. The two of you are the only survivor. Ooh, that sucks. Sorry. The two of you are the only survivors. One of you is injured. Of fucking course somebody would be. You have no idea
I
where
hope
you
it's
are.
me.
You think there's some chance that people know of the ship's distress, but you're not sure. A storm appears to be on the way. You decide that you need to prepare to survive on this island for some time and also make sure that you'll be spotted by a rescue party. There's a bunch of stuff from the ship on the beach that can help you, but you can only carry 10 items. Your mission has 3 steps. Step 1. Each of you circles what you consider the 10 most important items to keep from the ship's inventory list below based on your survival plan. Then rank order these items based on the importance to you. Give the most crucial item a 1 and the next most crucial item a 2 and so on. There are no right or wrong answers. Oh, I didn't rank mine. Shit. Did you rank yours?
Yeah.
Damn it. Okay. So,
But I want to change some of them.
okay. So that means that we are going to take a pause so we can rank these. Okay. Number 1, 10 gallons of water.
Samesies. You want to put that as our consensus already?
Yeah.
I told you I figured we'd have a
Okay.
lot.
So the second step to this is we share our list with our partners, together come up with a consensus list of 10 items, talk it over, and work together as a team to solve the problem. Both of you need to be influential in discussing the problem and making the final consensus. So we got the water is number one.
Yes.
Number two, 2 tents.
Okay.
Number three, flares.
Okay.
Number four, 2 walkie-talkie sender receiver units.
Okay.
Number five, first aid kit with penicillin.
Right.
Number six, 1/5 of whiskey. To be fair, as a sterilizer in case whatever's in the first aid kit doesn't work. Number seven, a knife. Number eight, matches. And number 10, 2 sleeping bags.
Wait. 8 was matches.
Mm-hmm.
9 was what?
Oh, sorry. 9 was freeze dried food for 7 days.
Okay. I thought something was missing there. 9 and 10 was
Sleeping bags.
sleeping bags.
What were yours?
Interesting. Uh, number 1 we went over.
Mm-hmm.
I had number 2 was the first aid kit with penicillin, only because it says someone's injured.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important. 3, a knife.
Mm-hmm.
4, freeze dried food for 7 days. 5, a shovel.
Okay.
6, cook stove and lantern.
I really considered that one.
7, flares.
Mm-hmm.
8, pots and pans.
Okay.
9, long rope.
Okay.
10, 2 tents.
Oh my gosh, can I tell you? Okay. Okay, before we decide on these consensuses, I picked 2 tents because we knew a storm was coming in. We also don't know how long we're going to actually be there. So I was like, well, if we're lucky, it could only be a few days. But if it's a longer, it's going to be really nice to have the tents. That's why tents were number
Fair.
2 for me.
Okay.
Number 3, I picked the flares because I was like, man, if somebody comes within the first few days, we got the flares. No matter how long we're here, we have the flares. I don't know if they go bad or not, but whatever. 4, the walkie-talkies under receiver units. I was like, maybe we can say hello, helicopter or ship if somebody's out there. 5, I did the first aid kit. 5th, because I knew that somebody was injured, but my thought is getting into shelter is going to be really important, especially with an injury, versus and then having the walkie talkies just depending. But I knew that penicillin was going to be in there. And then 6 was 1/5 whiskey, just in case we need to. What if we run out of medical supplies because we're there for more than like 7 days, right? 7 was the knife because it's like we're gonna need to chop some shit. 8 was matches because we can start the fire. Now I did think about pots and pans and the cookware, but I was like, but I've watched a lot of Survivor and I've watched a lot of Naked and Afraid.
Okay.
And I was like, I feel like we could cook some stuff without actually having pots and pans. I feel like we could do this. You know?
I added it because it says the freeze dried food, which to me, you need a bowl to rehydrate. So instead of having to fashion a bowl out of something,
Coconuts.
we don't know where this island is and if there are for sure coconuts.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you.
So, to be fair.
Okay.
But yeah, I said the 10 gallons of water because I think the first thing for immediate and long-term survival is the water.
Same.
I put the first aid kit with penicillin because if someone's injured, depending on how badly, that could be the most immediate need. But also long term, we're probably going to sustain some injuries as we do whatever, as we survive. So like,
yeah,
we'll need that. 3, the knife, obviously, for being able to, do almost everything, cut leaves and food and
which is why I didn't pick rope, because I thought
you can make rope out of stuff. Yeah, that's fair. I don't really feel like I need the rope. And then 4, I put the freeze dried food because I I I could see moving that down after the tents.
Well, let's look at it like this. So we each did the water. We
Yeah.
each picked tents. We each picked a knife. We both picked the food, and we both picked flares, and we both picked penicillin. So that so it doesn't really matter in what order these go. We just can write those in, right?
Uh yeah, we can do that.
So tents. Okay, so we've got shovel, cook stove, long rope. So those are the ones that you picked that I didn't pick. Pots and pans, shovel, cook stove, and the long rope. And what ones did I pick that you didn't pick? You didn't pick matches? I even tried, okay, during the 2020s in the pandemic, when life was crazy and people had nothing better to do with their time than to watch a lot of TV, Sean and I did watch Naked and Afraid quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we did buy, and I actually do have a flint starter in my hiking stuff.
Smart.
Well, actually, I don't think I have it anymore because I think we used it up trying to start fires in our backyard.
That's
Because I
hilarious.
was like, we could do this. That's going to be easy. And then we're like, oh,
It's
this is
not.
way harder than we thought.
Oh yeah, it's not that
It's
easy.
not that easy. It is not.
You know, it is easy, but it's all about preparing for the spark,
Yeah.
right? Because
Hmm.
if the spark doesn't have anything to catch, it doesn't really matter how easily you can make a spark,
Fair enough.
right? So, um, but I would say we don't. I would agree we don't really need the rope.
Okay, so we can take the rope off. Okay.
Um, I really don't think we need the walkie-talkie. I feel like the flares are going to be seen way easier than we would connect to anybody with a
But
walkie-talkie.
also, I thought not only just connecting to others, but also connecting to each other. Hopefully, we're not going across an island or wherever by ourselves, but you never know. Can we come back to it?
We can come back to
Okay.
it. Um,
We can get rid of the sleeping bags.
the sleeping bags. Okay, cool.
We can get rid of that.
Okay.
Okay, we can at least should keep the matches.
I can agree with matches.
Okay. I can agree with okay, I can agree with either pots and pans or cook stove top and lantern. Now, lantern, whatever fuel it has is finite.
I mean, unless we make more fuel, which depending on the island, we could do from a number of things.
That's true.
Um, so I guess I would rather have the pots and pans than the cook stove and lantern.
Well, actually, if we kept because I crossed out the sleeping bag. Okay, so we could keep oh, what about the shovel?
I just thought the shovel would be good for like having a designated bathroom area and for being able to like dig up, roots and things if we,
Yeah, I
you
didn't pick a
know,
shovel because I felt like we could fashion a digging tool as our ancestors have done. Like I felt like there
okay.
were a lot of other things because they only get 10.
Okay.
How do you feel about the fifth of whiskey,
It feels unnecessary.
even as a long-term disinfectant? Because so I looked at
Well,
it
we
from
have
like,
salt water.
I hear you, but like, okay.
I don't feel like we need anything stronger than seawater as a disinfectant.
And seawater is a good disinfectant,
Salt water is an excellent disinfectant, yes.
is it?
Hmm.
Are you sure about that?
That's what saline is.
That's saline in a purified solution of water, not with fish poop and amoebas and microbes in it.
Well, if we have the pots and pans, we can utilize those to collect the steam for purified water. And
Okay, we
then,
can pots and pans it then.
and did we agree on matches?
We did agree on matches. I already wrote mine in.
We have two more things.
Mm-hmm.
and you want the walkie-talkie over a cook stove or a shovel.
Okay.
Because that's the only we have
Okay,
two
we can do the
spaces and
cook
we
we
have
can do
three
we
things.
can do the cook stove and lantern.
Okay, cook stove and lantern, and then you want the walkie-talkies. You
Uh
think that's better than the shovel?
I
Because
guess
we
it
can
depends on
fashion.
what are the walkie-talkies in.
What?
I'm saying I guess it depends. We're assuming that the walkie-talkies are in working order along with plenty of batteries to use
Well, it would be silly for them to be on this list if they didn't work.
them. um
I'm assuming that we're not going to be there for more than a week.
I'm assuming we're going to be there at least a month. That's how I looked at it. Was like, I mean, it could be a random Caribbean island nobody knows about. I get that. I don't even know how big that area is,
The
but I hear
Bermuda
you.
Triangle?
Exactly. Okay, so it's between the shovel or the walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
And I've lost all I from a survival standpoint, if we're going to be there for 30 days, shovels do make a shovel makes very good sense. But also, I've also seen enough shows and movies where the flares aren't seen, and then what do you have? Walkie talkies. You know what I mean?
Interesting. I mean, and yet neither of us wrote the AM FM shortwave radio receiver just at the top of this
Oh.
list.
Okay.
Is that what you would rather have?
I guess that's what I was thinking, but I don't know how to use a shortwave radio receiver either. And the
It,
reason why I didn't pick
it's like a
that,
CB, baby.
but the reason that I didn't pick it is because it says receiver. It doesn't say that it can go out, which is why I didn't select that.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so you're looking at me like I'm stupid. And you're like,
No.
oh.
No, because you said that and I was like, I guess I just assumed that they always have the little, you know, walkie thing,
Oh, like a
on the
CB?
cord.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that's what I imagine is like a CB radio. When
Well, because it said
that's when you
AM.
said a shortwave radio, I was like, it's a CB radio. Isn't that what that
Oh,
is?
well, I don't know. Is it what it is?
So maybe we should just stick with the shovel, something we know how to use.
Shovel it is. Also, we could crack open shells and mollusks and whatever if we need to. Done.
I love you so
I think we did a good job.
I think we did an excellent job understanding our own capabilities. There's no point in being stranded with a tool we don't know how to fucking use.
Also, that's how you break it when you're trying to figure out how to use
Oh,
it, and then it's terrible.
can I just tell you that I work with somebody who has absolutely broken office equipment in a fit of rage of it not working?
Because they didn't know how to use it.
I mean, they didn't know how to troubleshoot it, that's for sure.
Fair enough.
But, like, you can't throw your printer across the room because it's got a paper jam.
Also, no, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So step 3, when you've finished, evaluate how the game went and answer the questions below. Let's do it together.
Would we have survived?
How effective do you think you were at influencing your spouse?
I think pretty
Very
effective.
How effective was your spouse at influencing you?
Pretty
Very
effective. Yeah.
Did either of you try to dominate the other, or were you competitive with each other?
No, I don't
Not at
think
all.
so.
Did you sulk or withdraw? No. Did your partner sulk or withdraw? Or
No.
withdraw? No. Did you have fun?
Yes.
A lot. Did you work well as a team? A great deal. How much irritability or anger did you feel? None. How much irritability or anger did your partner feel?
Some.
For what?
Well, because you said that I was looking at you like you were stupid.
Yes. So a little for me.
A
little for me. That face, I was like, oh, that's not cool.
No, I was really like, am I not picturing the right thing? Because I 100% just
that when I actually that was the first, like a CB radio was the first thing I thought, but then it said just receiver, and I was like,
I mean, but that's also what they called the part of the phone that you talked on when you had a wireless phone.
I mean, yeah, okay.
I don't know.
Do you both feel included? A great deal. Going forward, if you're having difficulty accepting influence, you will benefit your marriage enormously by acknowledging this tendency and talking about it with your spouse. Nobody can change old habits overnight, but if you're able to take responsibility for your difficulty with power sharing, that will be a major leap forward. Making your partner an ally in the crusade to overcome this problem, ask her or him to gently point out to you instances where you are being unwittingly domineering, defensive, or disrespectful.
Mm.
Yes. But I do want to go back to our real life situation,
Yes, the
the
scenario.
scenario.
Surprised you didn't bring it up before the game, but I know you were very
I was so
excited
excited
about the
about the
game.
game. I'm so excited. I love to see if we're like thinking on the same page. We
I
did a pretty good job. I feel
Yeah,
like
we
we were
only had what?
50%, right? A little bit higher than that.
Yeah, I think we had the top 6 items
Hmm.
we shared.
Yeah.
Even though for me tense was like my number 10 item, but made a good point about the storm coming in.
Yeah. I
But
was
that's
like,
the thing, right?
because we
You
wouldn't have
made a
had
good
time
point.
to build shelter.
That's such a good point.
I've watched
Yeah.
enough Survivor to know.
Yeah. And sometimes I need my space, so 2 tens was necessary. No, I'm just kidding. I actually assumed we would use the other 10 for like supplies and stuff.
Yeah, true. Okay. So, scenario about reasonable request and what would you say?
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
I think
What I do?
that the gutter situation is a perfect
Oh,
scenario for
man.
this.
Okay.
So, the scenario is we've lived in our home for
Almost 3
3
years.
years and it only has one, two gutter. Well, it has gutters on the front porch, which is not a major part of the house, and then it has a gutter on the back of the house, or the back porch. But they're not very good in the first place. They're not big enough. They don't direct the water very well. The
Mhm.
rest of the house does not have any gutters on it.
Mhm.
And so this year in the our house was built in 1921. And so the front steps to the house are not really very good. They're sturdy enough, but there's like a ginormous step to get from the top step into the front porch.
They're so questionable.
They're very questionable. But anywho, and so you want to redo the front steps this year, which I agreed
Mhm.
to, but you also want to add gutters to the house with sweat equity, which I was agreed to, but then we just had a major storm blow through and it flooded our basement again. And it's something that persistently happens here.
Mhm.
And so I suggested that we maybe put the front steps on the back burner because people could still come through the back of the house to get in if necessary,
Those steps are also so questionable.
but we should focus our energy and our money on getting gutters done professionally for a few reasons. One, the more water that keeps going and building around the house and the foundation is not good for the foundation.
Mhm.
But two, understanding that you're going to be helping Kelsey and Christian with their property and getting their basement done, and
Mhm.
then knowing that you're working full time, and then you also have some other things that you have to get done, and then the thought of trying to get all of that stuff done for their stuff, and then the regular work, and then our stuff, um, and then also knowing that we have to do metal fascia on the trim and the paint. I just think that for energy consumption and capacity, I feel like it's best suited to just have somebody professionally come in and do the gutters, because instead of it taking maybe all summer to get done, that'll just be
Mhm.
done in one shot. And also, the weather here is very unpredictable depending on the
Mhm.
fucking day. And so I just felt like it just makes more sense to put some energy into long-term outcome for the foundation of the house and the gutters and just have it all done in one shot instead of having it as a long-term standing project that has been in the works for 3 years.
Yeah.
That's the scenario.
So the reasonable part of the scenario is that you want gutters on the house. And you want the disagreement is that you want to just pay for professionals to come in, which will be all of the money we have saved up to do the front steps, and we'll be starting from scratch to come up with the money to do that. And you still want the front steps done, but you want to prioritize the gutters over it. My concern is that the steps, front and back of the house, are made of wood and are degrading, and they're degrading at a faster rate than the foundation is being affected by the water. And I understand the time commitment, but I also know that, like, we only have to put the only part of putting the gutters up that the uh, fascia isn't in shape to do that is this one line of the house. And that part won't take that long. It's all the eaves and stuff that don't need gutters that takes forever. So,
Well, those also need soffits too, but that's another thing.
yeah. But I hear and understand where you're coming from. And it's not that I don't agree with you. I just am saying that we can't afford to do both right now. So you're saying just do the gutters and forget about the steps.
Well, I'm saying that the structure that's in place for the steps in the back, I think that we could easily repair versus building a whole, because here's the thing, we're talking about the front steps, we're not talking about just replacing them as they are. You're also talking about creating a whole like walkway and little mini porch on the front. If it were just replacing the steps in a way that was more reasonable to where they are now, I would be totally fine with that. But you're talking about making it like a whole little mini
It's just
porch.
redirecting the steps and having a landing at the top.
Yeah, but it's different than what's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I just don't trust the structure of the back steps that much to continue lasting, nor do I trust that we would be able to repair anything in a meaningful way on that, because I don't know how well that aluminum is holding.
Okay. And so your reasonable request is that you would like to get,
How much is going into that savings account right now
I
per
don't
month?
know, I'd have to look it up on the app.
Okay, well then this needs to be a financial check-in conversation anyway.
Okay, we could do that.
Okay.
So as you can see, this reasonable conversation scenario is going nowhere. It requires a bigger conversation for the moment, which would be a financial check-in, which we will do later. But also, we are going to be having mini seasons of casual conversations in between our relationship resource seasons. So you should tune in for that.
It'll get interesting.
Yes, indeed.
Can't steal my line. Peace out, folks. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Love Spark podcast. Join us again next week and we will dive even deeper.
Before we sign off, here is an upcoming opportunity from LoveSpark. Join us at Lansing Pride on June 27th from 1 to 9 p.m. and we'll have a special release just for Pride.
Once again, we want to thank all of our fabulous listeners for joining us this week on the Love Spark podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Along with subscribing, please remember to visit us at milovespark.com, follow us at LovesparkDates on Instagram and Facebook, and join us again next week for another fabulous episode.
Indeed.